The Cincinnati Bengals have officially been eliminated from playoff contention with a tough loss against the Kansas City Chiefs. Give Jake Browning a lot of credit. He came out, looked very good. He was a guy that was not even supposed to start this season. It was supposed to be Joe Burrow. But when Joe Burrow went down, Jake Browning came in and he did a lot of good. Yes, he lost 2 games to the Steelers and he also lost against the Kansas City Chiefs, but he looked very good with this team. They blew out the Indianapolis Colts. They won a tough game against the Jacksonville Jaguars. They did a lot of good with Jake Browning. And I do want to give him his credit because he definitely deserves to have a spot in the NFL. Maybe not as a starting quarterback week to week, but definitely as a backup quarterback. And this team should keep him around because he looked very good underneath Zach Taylor. Now let's get into the meat and potatoes with the Cincinnati Bengals. Besides Joe Burrow getting knocked out the season against the Baltimore Ravens with that injured wrist, it was a lot of things that went wrong in this season. I'm not just going to say that's when their season was over because it wasn't. They could have made a true playoff run with Jake Browning if their defense was better. Their defense is horrendous. As I record this video, that secondary has to get better because the secondary is a 27th passing defense in the NFL and the 31st total defense in the NFL. That's not good enough. That's not going to get it done. Now, a lot of people were worried about how this defense looked without Jesse Bates, how they look without Von Bell. We see how the secondary looks. They can't cover the deep ball, and we've seen it over and over again, and those safeties cannot tackle in space. Now, Chidobe Woes is a solid corner. Mike Hilton is very good in the slot, especially when it comes to blitzing, but they need a true number 1 corner with this team, and they have to get those safeties right as well because Jesse Bates did a lot of good for this team in that secondary and he was covering in space. He was getting the job done and they basically had to let him walk because they went out and signed Orlando Brown. And speaking of this offense, the offense wasn't that great either. It was Joe Burrow or bust. When you look at this offense, they were last in rushing as I record this video. And Joe Mixon's not a bad running back. You don't want to just throw that out there and just say, hey, he's the problem. He wasn't the problem. Joe Mixon looked very good with this team this season. He bounced back in the right form. Yes, he's had a lot of down spots in his career with the Cincinnati Bengals, but I think he looked very good this season with this team. He was breaking tackles. He was able to catch the football in the backfield. You have Chase Brown, who's a very good running back with very good speed, who could take off. And he hits that top gear, he's pretty much going to take it to the house, like how he did against the Indianapolis Colts. He took a 50-yard screen pass to the house. So he has the speed. He has the ability to make moves in space. He's shifty as well. And you have key targets like T. Higgins and Jamar Chase. Now, T. Higgins did miss some time this season. He wasn't the same receiver he was this season that he was last season, but he was still very good, especially against the Minnesota Vikings when they won that game. He was phenomenal. The offensive line is the biggest weakness with this team on the offensive end. It's not Joe Burrow. It's not the play calling. It's none of that. It's the offensive line. Because early on, Joe Burrow was not able to extend plays. That's why they went 0-4 in those first 4 games. They were not able to extend plays to Joe Burrow because he had that calf injury. They should have set him down and let him get fully healthy and go with Jake Browning. But hindsight's 2020. They relied too much on Joe Burrow behind a horrible offensive line. Now, the offensive line has gotten better over time, but it's not saying much. Joe Burrow is the most sacked quarterback in NFL playoffs history. And guess what he did when he was getting sacked that much? He made the Super Bowl against the Los Angeles Rams, and it was a close game. The offensive line cannot block for him up front. This offensive line has been a major issue his entire career with this team. And if they can't fix that offensive line, Joe Burrow's not going to last long. He has already suffered a torn ACL early in his career. Then you look at this season, broke his wrist. He will not be able to stay upright if you can't get that offensive line right for this kid. You have to get that offensive line right because when Joe Burrow is at his best, he's one of the best quarterbacks in the game. And that's not even up for debate. He's easily a top 2 to top 3 quarterback when he's at full go and when he is on. And Jamar Chase is an excellent wide receiver to have alongside him, and the same with T. Higgins. Now, T. Higgins is going to be very interested to see what this team does because he's a free agent entering this offseason. Do they want to keep him? Do they want him to go? We will see. Because they invest a lot of money into Orlando Brown. And Orlando Brown hasn't just been this terrible tackle. He's not one of the worst tackles in the league, but he hasn't had that impact on this team that they thought that he would have. He has to be better moving forward. They've tried to fix the offensive line. I would give credit to the general manager, but you have to do a better job. Just acquire better talent and develop those guys. Because if you could give Joe Burrow a above average offensive line, this could be a perennial Super Bowl contender for the next couple of years. You're already a Super Bowl contender when Joe Burrow was in the game. Just get him help up front. That's all you have to do. And you fix the offensive line and run blocking. You add in play action. the sky's the limit with this team, whether you have T. Higgins or not, because Tyler Boyd is a good number 3 option. But the thing is with Tyler Boyd, he had a good season this season, but he also had a major drop against the Houston Texans. And a lot of people are going to look at him and say, hey, if he would have caught that touchdown pass, maybe we win an extra game. We wouldn't be in this situation. That is true. But he is still a good wide receiver. I don't want to hold that against him because nobody is perfect and no player is perfect. But he should have came down with one of those passes in the red zone against the Houston Texans. It's just unfortunate that he didn't. I think Zach Taylor did a fine job this season. I think that he is still too Joe Burrow dependent, but we have seen his offense without Joe Burrow. Jake Browning looked very good, and especially the way that he adjusted his game plan in that Jacksonville Jaguars game. In the first couple of plays, their offense was stagnant. Jake Browning didn't look as good. He stretched the field out with Jake Browning, and the next thing you know, he started to play with confidence. I think Zach Taylor's job is safe, and his job deserves to be safe. Now, as far as Coach Lou on the defensive end, I don't know. They don't have the defensive talent in the secondary, but they have the defensive talent in the front seven. Sam Herbert is phenomenal. 5 sacks on the season, but was very good against stopping the run, causing turnovers, very good defensive lineman. You look at Trey Hendrickson, phenomenal. 16 sacks on the season, 2 forced fumbles, one of the best pass rushers in today's game. He should be in that Defensive Player of the Year conversation, if you want to be completely honest, because he's better than that guy over there with the Dallas Cowboys. But that's a whole different debate. Trey Hendrickson just doesn't get the love that he deserves. And he has been phenomenal with this team the last couple of years, ever since he left the New Orleans Saints a couple years ago to join the Cincinnati Bengals. He's the best defensive player on this team, and he's going to continue to get better over time with this team. I would question Coach Lou in a lot of situations. Their soft coverage against Kansas City Chiefs really did tick me off. Just play the guys up close and just try to make things physical. The front seven, if it doesn't save them, their defense is just completely not it. Their defense is just horrible without their front seven being able to go around and make big time plays. Logan Wilson is a very good linebacker with this team. Tackle machine, very good in coverage as well. And Jermaine Pratt gives you some good snaps here and there. So I like the personnel that they have in their front seven. You also have 2 very good defensive tackles. When they're fully healthy, they're very good as well. So the Bengals have the talent. They just have to go out there and just get a little more talent, especially in the trenches on the offensive side. You fix that offensive line, you'll be in a great situation. And just go out there and get a couple players in secondary, develop them. The sky be the limit for the Cincinnati Bengals. But they will go through some major changes. Now, I'm not talking about just moving on from Joe Burrow or moving on from Zach Taylor. I'm talking about the roster decisions, because you're not going to be able to keep all these guys on the roster. It's impossible to keep Tyler Boyd, T. Higgins, and Jamar Chase and Joe Burrow's contract with Orlando Brown. Part of the reason why Jesse Bates basically had to leave and they couldn't make him an offer that he liked is because they went all in on getting Orlando Brown. So you're not going to be able to keep all these guys. So let me know in the comment section below how you feel about the Cincinnati Bengals and how do you feel about this season. If you're new to the channel, hit the subscribe button. If you like the video, hit the like button. Most importantly, want each and every last one, guys, stay safe, stay positive. Thanks for watching the video, guys. Peace.